Hi, I am Tarun and this podcast is brought to you by Green Story Media. In the last part of our podcast, titled Low Carbon Transport in India, are electric vehicles really the answer to the decarbonization of India's transport sector? We looked at the steps outlined by the Government of India to mitigate climate change and decarbonize its transport sector. It is a four-pronged approach and involves facing up to all areas of concern. Let us revisit them once again. First one is a modal shift to greener transport. Second is to improve vehicular efficiency. Third is faster adoption to electric vehicles. Fourth is to introduce biofuels to cut down on fossil fuel use. Let us examine each of them and their respective challenges with regard to technology and implementation on the ground. According to the Union Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, India has the second largest road network in the world, with 5.8 million kilometers. And he says 70% of the goods in the country is transported on a road network. Only 2% of this network are national highways, meaning efficient, green and modern systems. His plans are to get this to double in few years' time. Overall, roads account for 87% of all goods and people movement in the country. Railways, which are much efficient modes of transport in terms of cost and emission, account for only 11%. Air and waterways are minuscule. Why would you not expand the railway infrastructure? You may well ask. Well, the Indian Railways, which is a state monopoly, is a loss-making enterprise and largely remains a low-cost, people carrier. There are political ramifications to increase prices too. While, in the case of roads, these can be built quickly and tolls are a good way to offset the cost and manage the subsequent maintenance. Another mode of transport that India is betting big on is aviation. According to the government website Invest India, in 2010, 79 million people traveled to, from, or within India. By 2017 that doubled to 158 million, and this number is expected to reach 520 million by 2037. With the air passenger traffic projected to increase, the Indian aviation industry is on a high growth path. India witnessed double-digit growth in domestic air cargo of 12.1% in 2018-19 over 2017-18. Total cargo handled reached 3.56 million metric tons. The nation's airplane fleet is projected to quadruple in size to approximately 2,500 airplanes by 2038. Currently, the country has 130 operational airports, including 29 international, 91 domestic, and 10 custom airports. To augment the airport infrastructure, the government aims to develop 100 airports by 2024 under the UDAN scheme, and expects to invest $1.83 billion in the development of airport infrastructure. By 2026, the Indian civil aviation, maintenance, repair, and operations market at present stands at around $900 million and is anticipated to grow to $4.33 billion by 2025, increasing at a CAGR of about 14 to 15%. Air travel and aviation could be much needed for India and its economic progress, but does this spell well for emission? Aviation, as is well known, accounts for 2.5% of the global carbon emission, and efforts are on to reduce the same internationally. India, perhaps, cannot afford to leave out aviation, at least in the nearer term. The Union Minister for Surface Transport Nitin Gadkari recently said that a multimodal approach in transport will only enable India to a $5 trillion economy. Now, that is sensible perhaps, but does the adoption of multiple modes lead to lower emission in the longer run? Yes. In the case of move to mass rapid transit, in the bigger metros and smaller cities, it is helping, and more of it is even required for India. Here, there is a payback for the government on its investment, and the citizens enjoy a cheaper travel inside a city. Things have worked out quite well for India in this area in the last 5 years or so, with many of the metro projects starting to see completions. But more are needed, as people are gravitating to the bigger cities and towns as the economic activity accelerates. India is a far-flung and geographically diverse country. It will struggle to have a one-plan-fits-all kind of a solution. Therefore, any lower-cost alternative to reduce emission is paramount. While walking, cycling and reducing carbon footprint is seen as an urban middle-class trend, these lifestyle changes, while it is desired, would take many years to create a significant impact, considering the size of the problem. The second thrust from the government has been on vehicular efficiencies. Today, all new vehicles are on Bharat Stage 6 or BS6, which is equivalent of Euro 6 emission norms. Both the automotive sector and the government has worked quite hard to transform the technologies and implement them, starting year 2000 when the emission norms were first brought in. Besieged with the magnitude of the problem of air quality, a court-directed advancement to BS6 was achieved. From BS4 skipping the BS5 level completely to BS6. This was done in April 2020, a year ahead of schedule, and that was a big breakthrough, though many do not see the work behind the scenes, both by the government and the automakers in the country. In addition, fuel economy standards have been mandated for all passenger cars and heavy-duty vehicles. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency, an agency within the India Ministry of Power, notifies minimum fuel efficiency norms for passenger vehicles. Two sets of average fuel consumption standards were announced in 2014, one set for fiscal years 2016-17 to 2020-21 and another for fiscal year 2022-23 onwards. Basically, this mandates an improvement on fuel efficiency over time, aided through better technology from the automakers. Indian passenger vehicles sales, both the 2 and 4-wheeler, have traditionally seen a correlation with fuel economy, not because of any mandate, but simply because that fuel cost per liter of gasoline is and has always been very high relatively and even higher compared globally. This affects the citizen where it hurts most, and automakers pay heed to this requirement quite closely for a good reason. The third thrust, and the big one, is towards electric vehicles. With road transport slated to be the number one means of transport for many years to come and no replacement in sight, the government in India clearly is in a bind. So the best alternative would be to make the road transport in itself a less polluting one. With this in mind, the government has launched an ambitious drive towards EVs. The Niti Aayog, which is a planning body for the government, made an announcement that said if FAME 2 and other measures are successful, India could realize EV sale penetration of 30% for private cars, 70% for commercial cars, 40% for buses, and 80% for 2 and 3-wheelers by 2030. Now the government is all set to use this as the target to be achieved so that all the sins can be washed away and India can continue to be on the growth curve. Well, let us examine this issue in a little more depth. Until 2019, the electric vehicle penetration was approximately a meager 100,000 units in total. This is despite all kinds of policy measures and hype in prevalence from nearly 5 years prior. To our mind, what enabled a change in mindset can be attributed to two things: rising fuel costs and slowdown in the economy. 2019-20 was the first time in many years when sales of vehicles in general was in the negative. The fuel cost went to over $1 per liter of gasoline and continued to rise. Then came the pandemic. By then the need for a low-cost transport, more than a less polluting transport, became imperative. India reigns as the world's biggest market for scooters and motorcycles with a sale of 19 million units in 2018. Therefore, something was going to give, and it did. Citizens as usual looked for the change. The passenger 3-wheeler market, which is largely unorganized, had already started to look for local battery-powered solutions and became very early adopters of the same in the metros. As things would have it, few manufacturers had a skeletal offering in 2-wheel and 3-wheel segment, and it was lapped up, prompting more to join the fray. Athar Energy, a Bengaluru-based hardware startup, launched the India's first electric scooter, S340. The scooter covered the distance of 60 kilometers in one single charge and had a lithium-ion battery pack, IP67. As claimed by the company, the S340 offers an uncompromised ride for 50,000 kilometers. As on date, there is a plethora of players in the 2-wheeler segment and also some in the 4-wheeler. As per data available with the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, a total of 1.39 million electric vehicles are being used on the roads of India as on the 3rd of August 2022. More than 50% of them are electric autos, electric rickshaws. In comparison, there are 278.1 million registered non-electric vehicles on the road. While the ratio appears small, it is slowly improving. The total number of electric vehicles sold in India in the last 4 quarters Q2 21 to Q1 22 is an impressive 653,000. This volume has come mainly from 2 and 3-wheelers. Electric 2-wheelers contributed 63% to this volume. Electric 3-wheelers for passenger commute was 27%. while electric three-wheeler for cargoes stood at 4% of the total sales. Cars or four-wheelers, passenger and private contributed 5% to the sales. Electric buses are less than 0.5%. Now, let us go back to the desired outcome for the country. The projection earlier envisaged, that is, it said that at least 50% of all vehicles in 2030 would be run on electricity. This would be anywhere between 150 to 200 million vehicles by volume at that point in time, which is again anywhere between 15 to 20 million a year starting now. If the base is at a little more than 500,000 in the past year, the minimum to aim at would be to double the presence of electric vehicles every year on the Indian roads. An exponential growth is needed in the first 5 years from now on to make any sizable dent in this shift from ICE engines towards electric vehicles in India. But there are some challenges to electric vehicle introduction in India in the scale that is needed. Let us enumerate some. A. Infrastructure for charging. So the oft-repeated question everywhere, globally across countries, is, do we have enough charging stations? It is a need of the hour. So how many does India have? As per the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, BAA, as of March 25, 2022, a total of 1,076,420 EVs were on Indian roads and a total of 1,742 public charging stations, PCS, are operational. More importantly, how many charging stations does India need if its ambition with electric vehicles need to play out? To understand this better, let us look at the conventional, that is fossil fueling infrastructure in India. There are nearly 80,000 petrol stations, and all of which presumably are at public locations to service the present number of vehicles, that is, 27 crore number. Does that mean if EVs have to be 50% of the market in the future, of course, the strike rates need to be as similar? Perhaps not. There are few things which does not happen with diesel and gasoline. And one of them is home charging, for example. Experts have divided consumption profiles for EVs on these patterns: residential societies, corporate complexes charging for office goers, highway charging for travelers, and long-distance commercial fleet. Inside the city charging for three-wheel rickshaw, fleet cars, buses and others. So maybe, the infrastructure will keep pace with requirement in India. B. Kinds of chargers and specifications. The Ministry of Power has issued a document called Charging Infrastructure for Electric Vehicles, the Revised, Consolidated Guidelines and Standards, on January 14, 2022, to accelerate the e-mobility transition in the country. Looks like there is rationalization, and citizens should be able to cope with this new form of transport. In any case, the Teslas of the world, which believe in their own chargers, are still not in India. Not yet. C. Lithium-ion batteries. At the moment a gold standard. Most batteries today are on lithium-ion technology. Lithium-ion batteries account for 30 to 40% of the cost of an electric vehicle. Falling battery prices in recent years spurred its growth, but the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war has hit supply chains and stalled the slide in battery prices. Potential shortages of critical raw materials which go into the lithium-ion battery, namely lithium, nickel, copper, cobalt, manganese and graphite across the globe, can jeopardize the whole narrative. With global demand for batteries estimated to grow tenfold, India will have to worry about its options. For one, all these critical elements mentioned before that goes into a lithium-ion battery is imported into the country at the moment. Even as Indian companies are setting up plants to assemble and manufacture batteries, they are facing bottlenecks in the raw material supply and increasing cost vagaries. This could continue to haunt them in India. India does have deposits of nickel, manganese, copper and aluminium. Also, it is the second largest producer of graphite. But it will still need to invest in mining them. This would necessitate continuity of the technology as much as investments on projects with long gestation periods. In any case, the country would continue to rely on imports of lithium and cobalt in a big way in the foreseeable future. India's Minister of State for Road Transport and Highways VK Singh has publicly stated that the country needs to get out of the lithium-ion battery technology at the earliest, as the country has no control over the commodity. While India mulls on its options for the future and continues in its journey of EVs in the current environment, there is some hope from researchers on the environmental footprint catastrophe of large-scale mining. Scientists have found a way to recycle the batteries. Retired batteries could be used, they say, to supply world's next generation of lithium, cobalt and manganese and nickel. However, these are still to be authenticated at any significant scale. But hope is always eternal and science does deliver, when things come to a crunch. D. Safety. Another aspect with EVs in India was some major concerns with its safety. The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways in India sent out notices to all EV manufacturers in the country in mid-2022 to explain why they should not be punished for any fire-related incidents which occur in their vehicles in the hands of the consumer. This seemingly sharp reaction comes in the wake of many fire-related incidents, especially amongst the two-wheeler AV segment, in the first few months of 2022. The many incidents led to loss of life, property, and threatened to derail India's first major rush into the world of EVs. This also led to an uproar amongst the lawmakers and public as to the safety of the vehicles with an apparently thermal charged and volatile bomb in the form of a battery pack. Units were recalled and AV makers went back to reviewing their safety standards. While the incident is now slowly fading from the public memory, one may recall that fires in AV have been reported before and continue to be in the news from time to time across the world, including in some high-profile Teslas and Bolts. It has been continuously argued that the battery pack is susceptible to operating temperature flashpoints, and thermal management is a huge factor at play here. In India's case though, possibly batteries of all kinds, including some dubious ones, have been imported from across the world by more than 100 companies now operating in the space, all of which has sprung up in the last few years. That could have led to the slip in safety standards. But interestingly and globally, never has the electric vehicle world certified itself to be immune to a fire incident. Not yet. Scientists are at pains to explain that the advent of battery technology is ever changing and striving to improve constantly. Lithium-ion technology is giving way to LFP or phosphate technology standards for better safety, while doing away with reliance on cobalt is improving energy density, which gives us higher mileage on a charge. Bottom line being that batteries will continue to evolve in all aspects and safety will also improve. Accidents, unfortunately, could be around the corner but will definitely be a rare occurrence. Now, is this aspect a challenge to the prospect of electric vehicle introduction in India? Maybe not so much, but then all concerned need to be careful. A. Taxes and rebates. There is no major let-up on reducing it by the authorities. Cost of AV is no less or even higher than petrol and diesel vehicles, discouraging a faster consumer adoption. There is too much pressure on the automobile manufacturers to reduce cost, while there is a reluctance to reduce taxes by the union and state governments in India. As per SIAM figures, the total taxes at the highest slabs on vehicles are close to 50% of the manufactured costs. The government has made the right noises and reduced the GST to 5% for EVs. Let us look into this aspect a little more. World over, there is a clamor to cut costs of electric vehicles and get it on par with ICE-powered vehicles, so that the demand gets mainstream. In this scheme of things, the tax burden on the manufacturers and the customer in India, on the contrary, continues to be on the higher side. At the manufacturer's end, the applied taxes are of two kinds: GST, which for EVs is a flat 5% across segments, and a variable compensation cess between 1% and 22%. So a relevant, affordable category of electric cars, for say a mid-income group of buyers, with 170 mm ground clearance, length of more than 4 meters and an engine capacity more than 1500 cc, would attract an additional cess of 22% above the GST, taking its effective duty to 27%. There is more to contend with for the customer at the retail end. To register a vehicle across any state in India, one will have to pay a road tax, which is anywhere between 6 to 8% for electric cars, and other charges like registration charge, hypothecation charge, state development charge or parking fees, number plate charge, temporary registration, fast tag and others as applicable to a state where the tax is being applied. Most of this, at the retail end, become a state subject and therefore varies from one to another. While the centre has put out various schemes for EVs on its Amrit portal, like purchase incentives, coupons which can be reimbursed later, interest reduction, road tax exemption, registration fee exemption, income tax benefit, scrapping incentives and other, there is a lack of transparency, coherence and coordination and even compliance amongst its various states. While there is much pressure on the automobile manufacturers to reduce cost, there appears a reluctance to reduce taxes by the union and state governments. Therefore, these measures, or the talked about reforms in taxes, are perceived both by the citizens and the automakers as largely cosmetic. After electric vehicles, the fourth and final strategy of the government is D. Shift to biofuels. To begin, what is a biofuel? Broadly, it is a fuel distilled from processing any biomass. The term biomass refers to organic matter that comes from plants and animals. It can be anything, even waste. Unlike other renewable energy sources, biomass can be converted directly into liquid fuels, called biofuels. The two most common types of biofuels in use today are ethanol and biodiesel, both of which represent the first generation of biofuel technology. Ethanol is an alcohol used as a blending agent with gasoline to increase octane and cut down carbon monoxide and other smog-causing emissions. The most common blend of ethanol is E10, that is, 10% ethanol, 90% gasoline. This is already approved for use with the present ICE engines in India. According to the ministry, all petrol in India used as on date carries a blend of 10% ethanol. Now this can go safely unto 20% with some modification by the auto manufacturers in the present engines, and this is slated to happen as well. With automakers developing what is called flexible fuel vehicles, which are designed to run on E85, a gasoline-ethanol blend containing 51% to 83% ethanol depending on geography and season, an alternative fuel with much higher ethanol content than regular gasoline. Biodiesel, on the other hand, is a liquid fuel produced from renewable sources, such as new and used vegetable oils and animal fats, and is a cleaner burning replacement for petroleum-based diesel fuel. Biodiesel is non-toxic and biodegradable and is produced by combining alcohol with vegetable oil, animal fat, or recycled cooking grease. Like petroleum-derived diesel, biodiesel is used to fuel compression ignition diesel engines. Biodiesel can be blended with petroleum diesel in any percentage, including B100 pure biodiesel, and the most common blend, B20, a blend containing 20% biodiesel and 80% petroleum diesel.
To summarize, these are the essence of our two-part report. India needs low-carbon transport as urgently, if not more urgently, than the world. Air quality problem in India is acute. The volume of transport in India, both in terms of goods and people, is seeing a burgeoning growth much higher than any other country. Road transport will remain a favorite mode, while this being also the main source of pollution and emission. Indian government has set tough emission targets for itself to achieve by 2030 and is rolling out schemes to facilitate the turnaround in technology and infrastructure. The biggest bet at the moment seems to be on the electric vehicle and its penetration to reduce fossil fuel dependency and thereby reduce emissions. Will these strategies work for India? We do not know yet, but the future definitely will tell us. At the moment, both India and the world should be worried and put their best foot forward to make it work for everyone's sake. I am RB and I hope you like our podcast. Do support us in our endeavor to bring you news and impressions around the globe in matters pertaining to our planet and environment. Kindly like and share our material. Do let us have your feedback and comments, which can help us do better.